Dusty Tomes Audiobooks and Spoken Realms present The History of Historical Writing in America by J. Franklin Jameson, narrated by Joseph Tabler. Preface. These 4 lectures upon the history of historical writing in America were read before public audiences in the hall of the Johns Hopkins University in January and February 1887, and in that of Brown University in February and March 1889. The 3rd and 4th were printed in Englische Studien in 1888 and 1889, and the 4, after a considerable revision, appeared in the New England Magazine in 1891. Brown University, Providence, May 2, 1891. The History of Historical Writing in America. 1. The Historians of the 17th Century. The history of historical writing in the English colonies and in the United States falls naturally into 4 periods, and this alike whether we take as the basis of our classification its characteristics as historical literature or its characteristics as historical science. In the first period, the heroic age of discovery and settlement, such history as we have is the work of the Argonauts themselves, who, with little consciousness of authorship, still less of membership in a literary profession, wrote down, in simplicity of mind, accounts of things which they had seen and in which they had themselves borne a great part. This period is roughly equivalent to the 17th century. Upon this followed 2 or 3 generations of what we might call epigonal historiography, bearing clear marks of a colonial or provincial origin, yet often careful and scholarly, and mainly devoted to investigating and recording with pious care the achievements of those who had preceded. The 3rd period, lasting from the Revolution to the Civil War, was one in which history shared, in common with other departments, the effects of the general effort toward the creation of an independent American literature. During this, the classical period of our historical writing, the favorite subjects were portions of European history. Since then, we have had a marked improvement in method and scholarship, but the dominant impulse of the 4th period has been toward a closer and especially a broader study of our own history. It is with these 4 periods that the chapters of this book are respectively to be occupied. In general, only the most important writers of each will be considered, and no effort will be made to relate at length the picturesque and interesting details of these writers' lives. Not from any such disdain of the picturesque as modern students of history are supposed to affect, but because the subject is not the lives and personalities of American historians, but the development of American historiography. In the time of the first adventurers and settlers, some historical literature of value had already been produced by the nation from which they sprang, chronicles like those of Hall and Holinshed, collections like those of Stowe, and a few more notable performances, Lord Bacon's Henry VII, Knowley's History of the Turks, Fox's Martyrs, and the great fragment of a History of the World which Raleigh had composed during his long imprisonment in the Tower. But no one of these was in any way the model of our earliest historians, whose purposes were quite different. The purpose of one class was to awaken immediate interest in a given colony and stimulate immigration into it by accounts of what had been done there. To this class belong Captain John Smith and Captain Edward Johnson. The model of some of them may be seen in the pages of Hakluyt, in the Relations and Narratives of Voyagers. The other class, of which Governor Bradford and Governor Winthrop are the chief examples, believing themselves to have been concerned in memorable beginnings, wrote for the benefit of posterity permanent memorials, which they did not intend to be published till after their deaths. It is to these 4, as best deserving among our writers of the 17th century the name of historian, that the present chapter is to be mainly given.